Hey there, internets. So, I was originally going to do one video, and then after talking to a friend, because of an internet conversation we were having on Facebook, because of course, arguing on Facebook, it works every time. Unnamed friend Jay, because I don't want to throw any of my friends under the bus in my videos, or make people assume they agree with me, or assume they don't, or any guilt by association. We were talking about, it was originally about the issue of trans people, and some things were brought up. And I was going to talk about Biden's nominee for the Supreme Court, Ketanji Brown Jackson. I apologize if I mispronounced her first name. The Florida Parental Rights and Education Bill, also called by the left the Don't Say Gay Bill, which is not correct. And the issue of transgender people in sports and how this all applies. But I'm going to break this into three. I want to keep my videos to a certain length so they can be digestible. Let's talk about Judge Jackson, because she could be confirmed as early as this week. She needs to not be confirmed for two reasons. She is either incompetent, unethical, or both. I'm going to start with the unethical part first. She, years ago, had basically, instead of taking an impartial role as another judge's clerk, openly criticized one of the parties in a case. Judges aren't supposed to do that. Now, let's, for the benefit of the doubt, say, we all were young and dumb once. She was young and dumb, and this is not an insult to her, but we were all young and experienced, so young and dumb, we're going to use that term. And got pulled behind the proverbial woodshed by the judge or somebody similar and said, you can't do that. Let's give her that benefit of the doubt for just a moment. That could be could be put under the water in the bridge, but then during her confirmation hearings, everyone made a big deal about the Republicans asking her to define the word woman. And if I go to, I'm still using my phone, dictionary.com, and I will put the links in the description for this. I ask woman, it defines woman as an adult female person. Okay, as on the noun, or a female employee or representative. Adult female human is another one. That's what we all use. Now, if she can't define that word, words have meanings, and I'll get to that, because this whole committee hearing is an argument for originalism. Her not being able to define that. Words have meanings. When you write a law, you have a meaning. That's bothersome to say. You have to be a biologist. And she said, well, in my job, if there's a dispute about what a word means, I have to decide on that. So either she can't define it, or what she's basically saying is I can't rule on it. Well, if she should have said, look, I can define it this way. This is how it's colloquially done. But I may have to rule on it because our society is arguing over this issue. And that was part of that Facebook thread with a friend who, I responded to something and she put a thing in about people who are not the typical XY genes. And words have connotations, and that's what started her and I going back and forth. But then a few questions later, she got asked about Roe v. Wade, and she said, well, that's the court case in which the Supreme Court said it secures that a woman has a constitutional right to an abortion. That's the paraphrase. A woman has a constitutional right to an abortion. And then she said settled law. Well, there's two issues. Either she did know what that meant and to know that there's a meaning, which means she lied to the committee, or she just used words she didn't even know the meaning of, which calls into question, again, her competence. But then, in addition to on the competence issue, she said it's settled law. I don't see how it can be settled law if it is potentially, that case may be overturned by the Supreme Court in the next couple, 3 months. There is a court case in front of the Supreme Court right now, and it could uphold a over 15 weeks into the pregnancy abortion ban from, I believe it's Alabama or Mississippi. I'd have to look that up. But it not only could it uphold that law, it might even overturn Roe v. Wade. It doesn't sound like settled law to me, so I really have to question the competence. So we either have unethical, incompetent, or both. Incompetence plus propriety is supposed to be the standard. So Biden really wants to put a black woman on there. He needs to start over and find a different one. She was not my first choice of the ones that were supposedly his choice. I'm sure there's probably an originalist out there that could be there. And that brings us to originalism. Why? If a woman has been an adult female human since the beginning of the human species, as soon as we figured out how to talk, then you have to ask the question, aren't all laws assuming that? So in part of this conversation with this unnamed friend Jay, I finally said in my last comment, part of this boils down to what is a woman. Title IX was written with the idea of a woman is an adult female human. Girls, and a less than adult female human. So is a trans woman a woman? That's part of what's being argued. You get the whole thing on transgender in sports, and I've done some research. I will include links when I get to that part, but I want to keep these to a certain length. But if you can just change the meaning of a woman, and you only have to identify as a woman, we have set-asides in the form of education, government contracts, employment for women. You have to be able to define a woman and know what a woman is. And you can't just change the meaning of the word because it seems convenient at the time. Or if that's her judicial philosophy and she's trying to confuse the issue, so be able to get on there so someone can't say, that's a bad judicial philosophy. It is a bad judicial philosophy. This whole living constitution thing is garbage. And so she's got a bad judicial philosophy, might be unethical, and quite frankly, is definitely not competent to be on the court. Not that I'm a lawyer, but when it's pretty obvious to somebody at my level that there's a lack of competence. We're not talking about obscure doctrines. We're talking about saying something settled law that constitute the Supreme Court's not ruling different. It's accepted. That's the way it is. That doesn't sound like settled law when you can say it's when it can be overturned so easily. So words have meanings. They have connotations. I use the word not normal, not to be mean, but lacking. I'm not an English major, but lacking a better way to describe people who are maybe have the SRY gene on the X chromosome, or XXY on their chromosomes, or XXXY, and all of those cases a person is sterile. In 2 of those 3 cases, it's my understanding that they tend to develop mostly female characteristics, but will tend to be taller, broader shouldered, stronger than most women. Those are not what we are talking about when we were talking about people who are transgender or trying to define a woman. Those are not, for the most part, the kind of places in question, because their genitalia is female, to my understanding. But it is certainly different when someone says, I identify as a woman. And I've seen people use that as a way to say, see, we use bathroom, but I'm just going to identify as a woman because I'm not going to wait for the men's. Been there, done that. Got the t-shirt in that I was waiting. Single-use bathroom. I really had to go. I'll admit to it, okay? But I've seen people say, you know what, I identify. I'm sitting there trying to wait, not use the women's restroom, even though they're single use at this gas station. He says, you know, I kind of identify as a woman. And he goes in there and uses it. But, you know, we protect women. We hold these things separate for them. And to have that, you have to know what the law is. You can't have a consistent reading of the law without saying, this is what the word means. Take the Second Amendment. The word used is arms. Not muskets, not fowling pieces, not pistols, not muzzle loaders. It said arms. That would have meant weapons of all types. So we really have to pay attention to that, and quite frankly, if she can't define a basic, commonly used word like woman to be easily understood, and, you know, originalists, textualists, they all kind of go in the same category. Those people can have no problem with that. They have no problem making clear what is the law. And the average person can say, what is the law? So, yes, we're focusing on this one word, but it's the very idea of how you interpret what the law is, how you understand the law in the definitions of those words. Just like the word normal, it really means things like standard. In fact, if I punch it up here, it says normal, conforming to a standard of common type, usual, not abnormal, regular, natural, serving established standard. Psychology, approximate average of a psychological trait as intelligence, personality, and emotional adjustment. Free from any mental disorder, sane. Biology, free from any infection or other form of disease, malformation, or from experimental therapy or manipulation of natural occurrence. Noun, standard of common type. The usual state, amount, level, especially of an average or mean. Those are some of the definitions of normal. I didn't intend to use it as, the word's not normal, but it was accurate. Words have meanings and connotations. And so it seems silly. Oh, they want her to define a word like woman. Well, she obviously had a meaning when she addressed the issue of Roe v. Wade. You can't write laws without having a meaning in mind unless you don't want the rule of law. So, she was voted out of committee by a 40 vote in the full Senate because the committee was deadlocked. She does not belong on the court. So whoever gets this video, because I have very few views at this time, contact your senator, especially in states like Maine, where Susan Collins has said she will support Judge Jackson. Say, vote no. She doesn't belong on the court. Biden needs to start over. We have to accept we're not going to get an originalist out of Biden, but he can at least give us somebody that can define a word and understand that and not turn around and use the word 3 questions later to describe a court case and understand that settled law means it's not going to get overturned. So, for that is, I'm calling it good for the night. I'm going to try and get this uploaded before I go to bed, and like, share, subscribe if you can. My next 2 videos, in no particular order, will be on the parental rights and education bill, and I'm going to try and make sure that's a different day. Each one's a different day, and I'm going to talk about some bills that are similar. And that is the one they're calling the Don't Say Gay bill. It's also the Don't Say Straight. Quite frankly, it's the No Grooming in the Classroom bill. And the other one will be addressing transgender individuals in sports. Or I may combine those 2, but it'll depend on length, because I'm already up to 15 minutes here. So you guys all have a good day by the time you see this, and we'll see you again.